Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today's video is super exciting. We are putting the final touches on our prototype for the small block Ford Supercharger setup. Then we're actually going to be shipping this off to one of you guys, my buddy Andrew. He's got a 5-liter swap in his Ford Ranger, and we are going to throw some boost at it. He has kindly volunteered to do R&D testing with the first kit. In this video, we're going to show you guys what it takes to adapt an OEM serpentine drive setup to one that will work with the supercharger. And in the spirit of true hot rodding, we're going to show you guys that you don't need a bunch of fancy tools, you don't need any special equipment. Using just basic hand tools, you can absolutely make your accessory drive work with a supercharger. Anyway, let's roll that intro. So starting with the engine already finished is not how you make a video in order. So let's just take this whole thing off. We're just going to give it one of. So here we're looking at the Ford Explorer accessory drive on the front of our 347 stroker with my string simulating the factory serpentine belt. Now we have already solved our forward and back positioning of the supercharger pulley itself. My first thought is something along these lines and put an idler in roughly this position. Paracord out of the way. First step is going to be finding the distance between these two bolt points. But instead of taking the whole bracket off and measuring, I'm just going to flip around to the back of the motor and use these two bolt points because it's the same. You can swap the heads between one side and the other. Let's get that bracket made. We're going to create a sketch, back plane, circle, and 10.97 millimeters. Let's just go ahead and make that 11.5 so we have a little bit of extra wiggle room. And here is a trick that you guys can do. If you clamp one bolt, zero it, and then measure the outside distance of two of them, you get the center to center distance. Works pretty well. Yeah, this can be a little bit challenging. 103.4 is what we're going to go with. We'll just do 103.5. I was hoping we could get away with only using two of the bolt points, but unfortunately, it does look like we're going to have to use all three. And this print looks like garbage because I have not tuned the print profile for the Creality. Because with Creality printers, you can't just print a button and expect it to print. That's what you get with Bamboo. Anyway, let's just take a look and see how well it lines up with these bolt holes. Girl, I don't know if you see that I'm trying to work. And those two are lined up pretty much perfectly. And this one just seems just a tiny bit short. So I'll remeasure that and we'll move this hole in. Yeah, sure enough, that measurement, I had 65.98 and just rechecked it. Okay. Yeah, and about a millimeter off is fine. Oh. These are the bushings that I use for the idler pulleys on the LS. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these same idler bushings and idler pulleys on this guy. The next thing we need is a spacer to go behind this and in and onto those guys. I'm going to remove this bracket and build this adapter off of the engine. All right. Now, one thing I want to do before I go much further is I want to verify that the thickness or length of all three of these holes is the same. That way, if the face of this is off, we can compensate with the spacers. As a means to keep track of everything, we're just gonna, and I'm gonna measure the distance of this surface to the cylinder head for all three of the locations. I'm gonna start with that one, 84.03. 84.03 millimeters. And then we'll go down to this bottom one. 84.26. Now I'm going to go back through and double check these because I know that I messed up on at least one. So you can 3D print threads if you want, but what I prefer to do is I prefer to print them at the minor diameter of the thread and put extra wall thickness specifically around those holes, and then just run a tap in. It's a little bit stronger than printing the threads themselves, but honestly, this is pretty flimsy plastic. This is just to make sure stuff fits. Ta-da! It is attached. Not particularly well, but it is attached. If you cross-thread plastic, you will have a bad time. We have our idler bracket made. Now we just need to figure out how long of bushings to put behind it. I think if I just trim this guy down about 1/8 of an inch, will be basically perfect. Because I am gonna do some metal work, pull off all the bits that are delicate and sensitive to metal shavings. Right here. This whole face here and this all needs about 1/8 of an inch taken off. All we have to do is just break out a very special file. This bastard right here. There's a little technique done with these guys, but you can go. All right, sweet. Have some burrs we need to clean up and some filings I got everywhere, but you know, we'll get it cleaned up, good to go. But this should be just peachy. You guys know damn well I didn't use that file. Cool. These smooth pulleys, the forward and back positioning isn't super critical like it is with the grooved ones. To make my life a little bit easier, I'm just going to do this and go 1 to 2 millimeters longer than this height. We're going to go with 26 millimeter bushings here. We make some standoff bushings. I want to stick out enough so I can cut off all 3 at once with my super high quality baby lathe here that is not bouncy and doesn't have a whole bunch of harmonics. It's certainly the best lathe you can buy. This is all sarcasm. This lathe's an absolute piece of junk, but it will cut metal. And that is all that I need it to do. It doesn't have to cut metal well, it just has to cut it. Because I am building functional prototypes, not full production parts. Yay! Hot. And because that face is absolute hot garbage, do a finishing pass, just make it nice and purty. I'll have to check this back up and face it and clean it. All right. And now we make a mess yet again. This lathe has some harmonics and it really shows up when I'm using the parting tool. So just putting a little pressure on the headstock helps quite a bit with cutting, at least with parting operations. Never seen such fine machine work. When I say fine machine work, I mean, it's fine. Fuck me, that's hot. All right. That side is party. The side that's parted is quite literal hot garbage. This is why the production parts are done on a CNC lathe by somebody who knows what they're doing. Because I can cut parts and make something work and fit, but it's not going to be pretty. No, my hope is that I could just surface them and they'll be close enough to the same length. I don't think you're supposed to get WD-40 in your calipers. I think that is frowned upon. But before I install them, I do want to see if they're close to the same length. I mean, they look pretty close. First one, 26.33, 26.36, 26.4. Seems close enough. Would you look at that? Bracket. I need bolts. I need beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb. You name it. I'm gonna put some bolts in the holes. Maybe. If I can actually do that. Oh man. All right. 1 bolt, check. 2 and 3 bolt, not check, because somebody didn't remove enough material. I mean, that looks like it'll work. I got this guy bolted on. These bolts are definitely too long. Take a look at how many washers I had to use.
Oh, goodness.
But we ordered the right length bolts. These are just the ones that we were able to get at Tractor Supply. But this will be the height that the pulley sits at, which honestly, I think is just about perfect right here. Okay, we more or less have this basically solved. Now, this is a stud because I have this bolt running straight into the bracket. So I'm gonna actually move this guy to about here, which will increase the belt wrap on the AC compressor a little bit. Honestly, it's not bad, but if we could get it closer to that, that would be even better. Yeah, I think I'll just move this up here. I'm just gonna say straight up 3/4 of an inch. Looks good. And then I can reshape the outside bracket. Let's get that printed. Let's try version 2. As you may notice, these bolts are a little bit too long. So we're just using a lot of washers. I think we need more washers. That looks better. That is a lot better, actually. That should work. I do still want to move this one over just a smidge, a 1/4 inch at most. Cool, but this is good enough that we can absolutely trace this onto the metal and make one out of metal. Okay, so we've got a rough idea of what we need to make this work. Now I need to make this in metal. And you know what, let's go to the scrap pile. Ignore that Mustang hood. By the way, 21 horsepower is enough to break the frame on one of these little go-karts. This thing pulls wheelies and is absolutely terrifying. I think this one is going to do the ticket. This is a perfect piece of scrap. I can throw the rest away. Well, I've got literally 100 plus of each one of these plates. So I was considering putting them up on the website if you guys were interested. I'll put their dimensions. They're all 3/8 of an inch thick, so they're pretty perfect for making brackets for accessory drives. So if you guys are interested, let me know and I'll put those up on the website for like a couple bucks more than it cost me to ship them. And I also have some larger ones as well. So let's go make some race car parts. Oh look, even more plates. If you don't have a 3D printer, you can absolutely just do this with cardboard, or hell, you can just do it with paper. So what I'm gonna do here, trace a rough outline. Thing that is critical and like super important you get right is the center of each hole to the center of each hole. You could use a transfer punch set if you are 3D printing this, or if you don't have access to anything like that, start with any of your holes, doesn't matter which one, roughly in the center. Cool, we have a mark, and this is a quality center punch. I'm not sure if you guys can see the little mark on there. Now we're just gonna go off of this paper using our calipers. And I know damn well somebody's going to complain about me using these because they're such a fancy tool. You could use a compass from like an arts and crafts supply for this job. It doesn't have to be anything special at all. Our first one, 103.5 millimeters. All right. So you guys are going to have to take my word for it. These are 103.5 millimeters apart. So we'll put 1 point in our hole that we marked, and the second one, we're just going to scratch an arc. That's all we're going to do. Our next hole, we have to put somewhere along this arc. In reality, for what I'm showing you, it doesn't matter, but because we already put the outline of the pattern, we're going to locate it roughly near that corner, about the same distance away from this line. So just did it, and I'm just going to put it there. As long as it's on that arc, we're good to go. Well, it punched. Just gonna. Cool. The third hole, which is the one everybody will mess up on. Bottom hole, we have 90.83 away from this one and 65.1 away from that guy. So I'll start with the longer of the two. Get this guy dialed in to 90.83. Second one, first point in our marked first point, we're going to scribe an arc. So this is kind of a technique that you can use to gauge the size of your compass. Intentionally put it in pretty crooked, yeah, like that, and then you can pivot the compass and it will push out, and the maximum reading is where you're at. So yeah, we're at 15.11, close enough. We have this set correctly, and in there, and where these two arcs intersect will be the exact right location for the third hole, because trigonometry is neat. Leave a dent. Bent the highest quality Chinese pick that money can buy. And now, I guess we can use an actual punch. If you have quality punches, you should be able to absolutely do this to within a few thou. And just as a sanity check, it certainly looks like they are pretty well centered in those. The idler locations are not as important. We get to cut this off, drill 3 holes, drill and tap 2, and hopefully have a functional bracket. Now we're going to go over to the drill press. And let's make some pilot holes. These two I'm not particularly worried about using the pilot for because they don't, it doesn't matter if it moves. Like the idler pulley can be moved a couple millimeters and it's not going to matter. Akira, stop licking your butthole. We got the thing cut out and the corners semi-rounded. Now, it's not exactly pretty. This is specifically to show that you don't need a bunch of fancy tools to make these brackets and stuff for yourself. I do have this robot tapping arm that I use for like production parts, but you can tap holes by hand, or you can even use a drill, especially with the larger sizes. With the small ones, it's easy to break. Well, Turns out that one size too big is one size too big. Not too bad if I don't say so myself. This is actually the wrong length bolt. So we have a ton of washers, but with the correct flange head bolts, that'll actually spin. But not too bad. We've got almost 3/4 of the crank wrapped, which is awesome, and about as good of supercharger wrap as you could hope for. I cannot wait to see what Andrew does with this thing. And I've got to say, you guys, I'm really happy with how this turned out, especially for a hand-cut basic piece here. The next thing we do is we take this whole thing off. I'm going to 3D scan a copy of the intake just so I have all that data on hand. I'm going to send this to Andrew, and he is hopefully going to have a wicked fast supercharged Ford Ranger. But with that said, we are one step closer to making these kits a reality available for you guys. Alrighty, I know there's a ton of you guys that are going to ask when you can purchase these. And I do have plans to bring these to full-scale production and make them available for everybody. I have a couple small details that I need to work through, as well as finish building my large CNC mill. For a time frame on when these guys will be available, as soon as the first pre-order of intercoolers start shipping, should be in December, we are then going to launch a Kickstarter for our multi-fit castings. I know I have enough interest to meet the funding goals so we can make this a reality for everybody. However, we absolutely want to wait until after all the intercoolers are out the door and we have that as a smooth running operation before we add to our list of inventory. As for the Kickstarter campaign, I have no doubt in my mind that we'll absolutely reach the goals to get these into full-scale production. But we want to use the Kickstarter campaign to gauge exactly how large the interest is, because the more of these we can produce at a time, the cheaper we can get them casting, which is awesome for you guys, because our entire thing is trying to make forced induction and performance parts as accessible as possible to bring more people into the automotive community. With that said, if you want to see SWS Motorsports grow and continue to innovate new budget-friendly performance products, hit that like button, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal. Roll that outro.